If we could afford the copyright on the NXS song Listen Like Thieves, then you'd be hearing the opening notes, followed by the first line on the Talkback Show on the radio. And then we'd bring down the theme song to introduce the show. So here's the show. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 1, created January 7th, 2022. It's our first time doing this, so please be gentle. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me are Jeff in Minnesota and Neil out on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. This is Jeff in Minnesota. I've got a Clown Shoes Exorcism at Sunset Imperial Stout.
Hi, this is Neil out on the East Coast, and I'm drinking Campari on the rocks.
I went with a basic mudslide tonight, vodka, Kahlua, and Bailey's. Want to let you guys know that you can also find us on Twitter. It's at Green Bay Chat, very simply at Green Bay Chat. We'll be posting things on Twitter to let you know where to find us once the video is recorded and we know just what the hell we're going to do with it. Taking a look at the show tonight, our topics, we're going to look at back at the win against the Vikings. We'll talk about the player of the game. We're going to look at the regular season finale in Detroit, as well as a fresh injury report that we just picked up today. We're going to give you some This Week in Packers history, get a look around the league and playoff scenarios. And finally, Jeff's going to tell us a story of the NFC Central. But before we get all to that, Jeff, let's start with you. You're the one who has chosen to live in the land of the Vikings. Why don't you start us off with the vibe there, how it feels to win an important divisional game?
Well, in the land of 10,000 lakes, hope springs eternal. And the Vikings, well, hope springs eternal for them, and they'll have to wait another year. So my wife is a lifelong Vikings fan, and she's not too happy about the results, but as a Green Bay fan, obviously I'm ecstatic that they did beat their rivals. The general attitude in the Twin Cities is resignation, I would say, is pretty accurate. Another year has come and gone. Kirk Cousins was not the savior, but you know, there's always another year. We'll see if Ziggy and the ownership group does do a full coaching change and get rid of a bunch of players, clean house, and start over. This is not the first time this will have happened, and probably won't be the last. So from 10,000 lakes, 10,000 hopes, and 10,000 dreams.
And the question really to be answered is, how soon after Mike Zimmer gets fired does his smoking hot girlfriend leave it?
Milliseconds. Next question.
And what will Paul Allen do as a result?
Who knows? Who knows what Paul Allen will do? He will announce, he will go over the top, and he will be the media darling once again on a national broadcast with his over the top, right or wrong call of the game.
Neil, what's your take? Who's your player of the game in that Vikings wrong?
So, I mean, it was an interesting game because for once we actually sort of played well for more than one quarter, which was great. But I think, you know, that you could look at the passing, of course. You look at Devontae being all world once again. But to me, you know, you look at the running game and you look at our pass defense, and it was our blocking, and it was the blockers, it was the line. And you know, that to me, you know, Elton Jenkins tweeted out that, you know, a snowplow pushing through about 3 feet of snow, and, you know, put out the numbers of the Packers linemen. And, you know, we basically allowed almost no pressure on Rodgers. We allowed, you know, over 150 yards, or we achieved 150 yards of rushing. I just think that they were the dominant players, and it's especially remarkable that, you know, how many people are injury replacements, and yet they get the job done every single week. And, you know, they're the real rock. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that group in the playoffs.
A great patchwork line, 2 games in a row, no sacks, with a bunch of guys that it's like, hey, can you play this position? And they put it together, and they did really well. They helped pave the way, like you said, as a snowplow. A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones had a great game. I was just happy to see a backup quarterback get in the game.
Mr. Mannion.
And
well, I see what you're saying for the Packers. Yeah, that's true too. We got
Jordan Love got to play.
Got some kneel downs, and it didn't hurt that Mr. Cousins was on COVID protocol.
Oh, I don't know. I think that we might have done just fine with Cousins in there as well. So, yeah, I mean, to me, the stats of the game is that, they had 2 tackles for loss. And they only hit Rodgers 3 times in the whole game. That on top of all of the yards, and AJ Dillon quadzilla, but quadzilla is only there if there's a hole for him. So it was incredible.
I think it was a dominating performance all the way around, both sides of the ball, that Packer fans long for. And we look back at our great teams, especially that 96 team, the dominating defense. But just to be able to go into a game and know you're going to annihilate. And we haven't really had that. We've been winning, which is great. But to get a nice dominating game like that against Minnesota is, I think, the thing that people have been pining for all season. And I'd rather have that now, saying, hey, we got some momentum going into the postseason, than to say, oh, yeah, hey, remember back at the beginning of the season when we dominated and now we're just squeaking by?
I think it was. I think it was best summed up by my wife Sunday night, because it was a Sunday night game, came to bed late. She said, "You're not stressed." And I said, "You're right. It was one of the better games of the year. It was dominated, and
on top of it was against Minnesota. So.
And your team lost."
Hey, let's take a look at this regular season finale. We're going to be heading to Detroit. Well, we're not, because we decided not to make the drive over there, but it is a backup plan. One of these days we will end up seeing a game at Ford Field, right, Neil?
Absolutely. We talked about it. It's a short drive for both of us. But I don't know that I want to see a game that's going to be half backups, but I do on television, because I'm happy that we're in this position. That's the beauty. And, it's good to be in a position where you can actually say, well, do we play the starters? Do we just do the backups and give all the starters an extra bye week? And what I really like about the approach that we took, or that Matt LaFleur's announced that we're taking, is that he looked at the data. He looked at, what are the situations when teams take the last week as a bye, when they are actually going to go for it and play. And he determined that the starters need to play. They need to go out, be aggressive, and play well. And, that's hopefully what we'll see in Detroit. We'll see the starters ideally for the first half. They'll kick ass, and all of a sudden you'll get the backups in and get some rest for the starters as well. But I think the goal of seeing sharpness from all the players is really what I like. But I like that he specifically said, I look at the data. I'm a scientist. I look at the data. It's great.
Almost sounds like the philosophy of that old third preseason football game, that third preseason game where you get the starters. You want those starters to get acclimated to game speed. What are you doing the whole week? You're ready to go. And then get them maybe that first quarter or whatever it may be, and then get the backups in. Because, the other side of that coin, Neil, is you want to avoid injuries, right?
Yep. I mean, that's why, half sounds perfect. And, I think that your analogy of that third preseason game is exactly the right one. And well, look what happened to us in New Orleans when basically Rodgers didn't play the whole preseason, and a lot of the other starters didn't play the preseason. We started out flat, and we can't afford to start out flat against a good team in the playoffs.
I think flat is a gross understatement.
Jeff, what's your look for Detroit, Jeff?
Well, devil's advocate here. Saw some interesting articles about Rodgers' incentives. Now he's got, if he plays, just want to throw this out there, how much, Matt LaFleur is the head coach, of course, and Aaron Rodgers may or may not be the head coach, but certainly a very important player. It sounds like, though, that there is buy-in, that Rodgers is fine or okay and wants to play. Maybe a little bit incentive driven. However, his incentives are smaller in $100,000 increments than Tom Brady's incentives, which are in $250,000 increments, which I thought was interesting. And it looks like both players are set to hit at least 2 of their incentives with playing this weekend.
Keep the star quarterback happy, I think, is good, right? So,
great.
I get that. Players play, right? Players want to play. But when you look at accomplishments for the season, this is the first time that any team in the history of the NFL has won 13 games in a season 3 years in a row. We've locked up the first round by the number 1 seed.
Yes.
A win here does nothing for you. A loss doesn't change anything. To me, the downside, the chances of injuries is too great. Now, great, we get an extra week off, but what if you have a 6-week injury, an 8-week injury, or worse, and things like that?
You know what my actually concern is, as far as the the playoffs are, my biggest concern is not injuries we get now. It's that we have a COVID outbreak in the team right before one of the games. And to me, the perfect scenario for the Detroit game would be everyone comes down with COVID tomorrow. We have to forfeit the game and we come out of it with absolutely no negative connotation. There's nothing negative that happens. Nobody gets injured. We don't play poorly. We just get out of that game. And now that we don't have to worry about COVID for the rest of the playoffs, because that's what I'm really afraid of is we get into the divisional round, we get in the championship game, and all of a sudden Gary is out, Preston Smith is out, half of our line is out, and against a good team, you're not going to be able to get away with that. And it may come down to this chance element of when people will get Omicron, which everyone's going to. So,
and I think that's a huge fear of the NFL too, because as you get in the playoffs, as we've seen the last couple of weeks, some of the games have been less than competitive. So if you're looking at in the playoffs, when the NFL really wants to showcase the talent, when they want the teams to be at their best, if you have a team that's ravaged by COVID that gets blown out because of it, there's going to be, the NFL is, for the most part, the badge is strong, but they don't want to put a really poor product on the field because of COVID.
I just don't want us to lose because of it. Let's get everyone out of the way.
Yep. Agreed.
Being forced to forfeit is a lot better idea than taking a knee for 60 minutes of game time as well. But you're right. You look at it and you say, hey, it's the chicken pox. Hey, can we get everybody sick this week? And then we don't have to worry about it for the next 3 months.
Right. Everyone gets sick. They sit around for 5 days. It's the same as just taking a bye, right? So they can do all of their preparation remotely. And
we do have the week off. We have that to look forward to. Hey, some great things to look at, though, on this Detroit game as we talk about injuries, players that are coming back. David Bakhtiari is back. He's in, still has a knee injury. He is listed as questionable for the finale in Detroit. Surprisingly, Aaron Jones is listed as questionable. I didn't know that. And then one of our favorite guys, Devondre Campbell, right in the middle of the defense with his elbow, he's questionable. Now, Kingsley Kiki and Jair Alexander have been ruled out for the game. They will not play. But here's the interesting one. Josh Myers, our rookie center, is back from the IR, and he will play. Hey, Lucas Patrick, thanks for helping out, but take a seat. We've got, again, like I said earlier, Neil, you alluded to it. Let's talk about that, Neil. Being a lineman, you've patched together that offensive line. You've had 2 great games in a row. Even if demonstrably, whether it's physically in person or on paper, Josh Myers is a better center than Lucas Patrick, does that necessarily mean he's going to gel better with those other 4 guys in that position?
Especially with being a rookie. There's he doesn't have the total amount of time working with all the other people. Though by the same token, this team, this line, this set of linemen has shown incredible resilience, and the resilience that they've shown as far as we don't care what parts get thrown in, we're going to do the job. I think that's encouraging to me. And these are professionals. These are not college linemen or anything as well. And I think that's gives me less concern than perhaps I might otherwise have. So. I don't know. I want the best players playing, and they'll figure it out. They're good, and they've demonstrated they're really good, whoever is out there. So
it's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. We're blessed with the fact that we have the depth. We talk about Brian Gutekunst, who did a great job of getting depth on this team, and a guy who deserves to be, in that executive of the year and GM of the year conversation, because he kept this team together, kept finding guys. Devondre Campbell, Roswell Douglas, 2 guys right there that we can say, holy cow, why do these guys fit in Green Bay when they didn't necessarily fit in anywhere else? I don't care. They're fitting in here and they're playing great.
No, it's been incredible just to watch all of the parts. If you told any of us at the beginning of the season, you're not going to have any Bakhtiari for any of the regular season. You're not going to have Jair. You're not going to have Zadarius Smith, right? You're not going to have Jenkins, right?
Well,
you're talking about actual all pros, and we're missing all of these all pros, and yet we're still playing incredibly. It's really says a lot about the players that are on this roster.
Exactly. When Bakhtiari went down, I thought we'll survive. Elton Jenkins is a stud. He'll do fine. And then he went down, and I thought we're fucked. And unbelievably, these guys that they put together, Yash Nyman, you put him in there. wow, what an incredible kid he's turned out to be. And then you've got the two young guys in Royce Newman and John Runyon at the guard. Again, Lucas Patrick did a great job filling in at center. And then they had the patchwork, the right tackle, even between Billy Turner and David Kelly now. David Kelly, who sat, for what, 10 games, was inactive for 10 games, and now is out there, and he's rested, rested and ready, right? So it's great that they're able to put that next man up philosophy, and they're doing it. So it's great that we can do that.
I mean, by the same token, Matt LaFleur's offense is really built on doing that. The fact that we've got, you take our running back tandem, you take the things that we do with tight ends, the things that we do with our wide receivers. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can come at you, and that helps the line get be in a position to do their best work. I mean, we're not just doing the same thing every play where they can figure out all of our tendencies and what's going to happen. So I mean, there are a lot of elements that are making this work. And I think starting right at the top with Matt LaFleur is where the real credit has to go. So
thinking of it as a preseason game, there's a couple of guys probably low on the depth chart, especially in the receiver spot, who are probably hoping that they get to play, or hoping that a lot of the backups and reserves play second half of that game, because when they're ready to take Randall Cobb off of injured reserve and put him back on the active roster, well, somebody's got to bump down. Somebody's moving back to that practice squad for the playoffs. And you probably want to have a chance this game to get out there and show that you belong on that roster.
Yep, excellent point.
And we are in the playoffs. So let's take a look at this week in Packers history and talk about a playoff game. That San Francisco at Green Bay at Lambeau Field 8 years ago. Neil, how good was that game?
That was a terrible game. It was one of the coldest games I've ever been at. It was, your beer got slushy. I had 18 layers of clothing on, and we lost 23-20 looking at it from the upper deck with you and me. I mean, it's just, this was as bad a possible scenario as it could have been. So, and I'm just tired of seeing San Francisco, and, we had a great run with San Francisco in the 90s, and I'd love to get back to that run where, we're complaining about, Jerry Rice, whether he caught it or not, and not whether we got our butts kicked by San Francisco again. So.
Well, we were practically sitting on the roof at the base of that 700 level, and they had office chairs out there for makeshift seats for us, which was great. And my dying words will be Jerry Rice fumble. But taking a look at the playoffs for this year, and we've got a whole bunch of great playoff scenarios this week. And quite frankly, the AFC is a big fucking mess, and I don't care. Let's take a look at the NFC. Two teams that need to play well this weekend and get in. The 49ers, they win, they're in. Saints need to win and get a 49ers loss to be able to move up into the postseason. Which of those two teams, Jeff, who do you want to see? Who don't you want to see get into the playoffs here?
Given my druthers, probably New Orleans, Southern Dome team coming up to Lambeau. Doesn't matter if it's 40 degrees or 10 degrees or even colder. I think we match up a lot better with them in order to beat them. San Francisco, historically, like I said, we've had some struggles with them. Earlier this year, we did beat them, but I'd much rather see New Orleans make the trip up to Lambeau.
Saints have been having quarterback troubles all year. They're going to get Taysom Hill to start this game. They've got to beat the Falcons and hope that the 49ers lose to be able to get in. I really think the 49ers are just going to play strong this game, or the Saints are going to lose outright, and the 49ers are going to get in. Neil, what do you think?
I agree with you. I don't want the Saints, week one was an anomaly. We weren't ready. We didn't play, our starters didn't play the preseason. We just weren't ready. We're going to beat the Saints this time. I'm not as concerned. I'm concerned about anyone. Any team that makes the playoffs can play well. We can play badly. And that's my overall concern. But fundamentally, the 49ers scare me, as I just said. And, it took a last minute comeback in order to beat them in the regular season. I don't want to play the 49ers in the postseason. So.
In my opinion, whichever one of these teams gets in, I don't think they get past the first round, the first weekend. You look at it, they probably are going to have to go to either the Rams or the Buccaneers to play. And I just don't see either of those teams getting past that. But with that said, when you look to the second round, then Green Bay being the 1 seed will have the lowest remaining team out there coming to Green Bay. Could be Arizona, could be the Eagles, might even be the Cowboys. Who scares you guys in that second round game?
Not Arizona, that's for sure. Anybody but Arizona is fine by me. So The Cowboys, and the thing is, every team's got their own set of weaknesses. And that's, one thing that I like, but one thing I'm afraid of. And, do you want to face Mike McCarthy globally? Yes, I'd love to face Mike McCarthy in the playoffs. On the other hand, I think they've got the most talent of the remaining of the non-Packers teams in the NFC. And so their talent all comes together. They could be a real problem.
Agreed. It would be, for the NFL's, I think, probably dream matchup for the Packers to be playing Dallas and have McCarthy coming back to Green Bay, in the playoffs where he had some success, but I know that there would be, I think he'd get his team ready, but I think LaFleur would really, and I think Rodgers would like to beat McCarthy in Green Bay just to say, okay, go away, put your tail between your legs and get out of here.
At one point, I'm sure it was in the script for it to be Dallas at Green Bay for the NFC Championship game. Right now, it's kind of tough for that to happen. Dallas is going to have to win and hope that either the Rams or the Buccaneers lose, I think, in the final regular season game, and then just juxtaposing how all the seeding works out for that Dallas to be to Dallas not to be the lowest remaining seed in the second round, but for Dallas to be at Green Bay in the NFC Championship game. The way the standings are right now, I don't see that happening. Arizona doesn't scare me as much as they did when we had the regular season game in Arizona. But I think it's that Tom Brady factor that probably tightens up the sphincter muscle a little bit for everybody. And I think that's where we are. I think we just wait and see what happens. The best part about this is 2 weeks of stress-free watching football for me.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's they've earned it. And like I said, we'll hope that they put their best foot forward when they do start playing again on either January 22nd or 23rd. That's all we can hope for. Be prepared.
All right, let's bring this home. Jeff, give us a bedtime story. Tell us about the NFC Central.
So back over a little bit before Christmas, Cliff Crystal released a gigantic 4-volume set. And it was called, it's available at the Packer Pro Shop. It's a little ditty called The Greatest Story in Sports. And it's close to 1,000 pages, lots of text, lots of pictures. I picked it up a few nights ago, started reading it, and was just completely blown away. What struck me as, just couldn't believe it. So back 1970, Pete Rozelle, the new commissioner, trying to consolidate the NFL, the AFL, try and get everybody to play nice together in the sandbox. They were realigning the divisions, and the Packers, there were 5 division scenarios that Mr. Rozelle wrote down. And he wrote these 5 down and he put them in a fishbowl, and he had his secretary pick one of the 5. And that was what determined the NFC Central. Now, as we know, the NFC Central and the NFC North is Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota. But what's fascinating, and that's what his secretary picked out of the bowl in 1970. But what's fascinating is the other teams that could have been in the Central, and frankly, the Packers could have even played in the West. Teams in the Central, it could have been Atlanta. It could have been St. Louis, the Cardinals, when they were still there. It could have been Dallas. So it could have been New Orleans. So the fact that, luck had it so that she picked it out of the bowl, scenario number 3 won the day.
A lot of games against Detroit. Thank you to that secretary.
Yeah, and the rest, Thelma, as they say, has been history. It's been a great history.
Yes. We can thank Thelma for picking that one out.
That's going to wrap us up. Neil, any final thoughts?
John, you didn't warn me that I needed final thoughts.
Just say go Pack go and let's wrap it up.
We'll splice that out. Go Pack go and let's just see what happens.
All right, you can get more information on the GBC podcast on Twitter at Green Bay Chat. We're going to get more information out to you on how to find us on Spotify, Twitter, wherever we post this great video. And for you at home, may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Good night.